Hopefully everyone has some kind of familiarity with SIEM, security incident and event management systems, or SOAR systems, so security orchestration and automated response systems. So within Microsoft Sentinel, they have these core capabilities. And over on the left-hand side is kind of that main point of having these SIEM and SOAR systems is these data connectors, right? How do we get information into these systems? How do we get the logs for all these different endpoint systems or different source systems that you may have in your environment? Being able to ingest all that data and those logs is what allows us to do the monitor and detection of what's going on with those logs. And we use certain systems and components of Sentinel like workbooks and watch list, threat intelligence, analytic rules, and how we use KQL and hunting queries and notebooks. Now, I won't go into notebooks really at all today because that would really warrant its own session just for notebooks. So I would imagine at some point in the future, I'd like to host one where we just dive strictly into notebooks. And then to round out that, once we have the data collection, we've set up analytics rules, we have threat intelligence, and by using those analytic rules, we're able to raise incidents and then be able to investigate those incidents and see if, there is malicious activity. Or on the flip side of that, automating and the remediation of those incidents with automation rules. So if you're an organization that has to adhere to certain, cybersecurity framework controls like CIS, NIST, SOC 2, or ISO 27001, this can enable you to satisfy those controls in your overall cybersecurity program, like in your logging and monitoring policies. Some examples of those are identifying attacks, storing incident information, protecting sensitive logs, or just your overall data logging and monitoring controls. Let's move on here. So when you look at the base of Microsoft Sentinel, right? So Microsoft Sentinel is a cloud native SIEM, and it sits on top of a log analytics workspace. When you have those you create that log analytics workspace, we first start with the data connectors, right? How do we get information, logs, and data in there? Out of the box, Microsoft has tons of data connectors, as you can see in this list here: Azure Active Directory, Defender, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office 365, just a whole host of all of these. But when you really want to dig in and see what the capabilities are with the data connectors and what you're able to monitor, you start to look at something like this, right? You have threat intelligence vendors, your on-premises systems using CEF and syslog, Windows MMA agents, or the newer Azure Monitor agent, Defender for IoT, and then all these custom applications, all that sending data into Microsoft Sentinel so you can really get a holistic look at what you're trying to understand what's going on inside and across your enterprise. So I'll take a minute to pause there and see if anyone has any questions. I know I ran through that kind of quick.
Hey, Mike, this is Patrick.
Yes.
This is great, by the way, because I've been wondering about some of this stuff myself, particularly with on-prem logging. So it looks like everything gets put in that log analytics workspace, and I imagine that the cost is going to grow the more you put in there. Is there any? Do you have any basic information on like relative costs, I guess, in terms of do the native data connectors, do any of those, like if you have Defender for cloud or Defender for endpoints, et cetera, is that stuff like less expensive, I guess, using Sentinel compared to anything else, or are you not sure?
So that's a great question. So in the lab environment that I'll show, I have a syslog server collecting information from an on-premises firewall, and I'll actually be able to show you what we actually pay for that in our lab.
Okay,
And
great.
then, so you'll get to see the cost around that. And then with the native data connectors, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the ingestion of those native data connectors are free.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
you'd want to check the time base on that. So some of that's gonna the included or the free is going to be based on a number of days, and then past that you would want to either pay for it or let the data cycle.
No, that's a
Gotcha.
great point. I forgot about the retention, Dan. So that's perfect. And we can take that offline, and I can help you understand and dig up some of that information around cost if you wanted to dig into that further.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yep. And I'm just going to add a note here to review the cost.